Hey everybody, Quantum here with a meta report breakdown that's pretty unique. It is March 31st, so it's a Sunday evening, and we just had the conclusion of the big 2K online PIXELBORN tournament. This is the largest registered one to date, I believe. If you go to Inkdex and you sort by players, you can see it is the biggest one. We're seeing a lot of Steam pick up for this game, a lot of people trying to get their practice in because obviously the store championships, the official Ravensburger events were announced, and this tournament is a good indication of where the meta is developing into, right? There's still a lot of variety and a lot of diversity and a lot of changes happening. You've seen the introduction of like this emerald steel deck that uses things like the Friar Tuck. It's heavily back on discard with the Prince John's not using the Bucky. So a big shift from, the Bucky list that was at the beginning of the format or the Bucky list from Rise of the Floodborn. We're going to take a look at some of the deck lists here. We have top 16 deck lists up here. But more interestingly, you're going to notice that there's a lot of draws on a lot of these records. Whereas if you look at previous tournaments that these people were in, you're going to see that there weren't any draws. And that's because this is the first tournament, I believe, that employed the new best of two, I guess you can call it. It's not really best of two. It's just you play two matches against your opponent in the Swiss rounds, and there were 9 rounds of Swiss. And the way that the system worked, I believe, is that you get 0 points if you lose both your matches against your opponent. You get 1 point each if you and your opponent won a game each. And then you get 3 points if you 2-0'd your opponent, and your opponent gets 0, obviously. So you can see here the winner, no surprise, Brendan DeCanio there, ended up not getting 2-0'd in any of his matches in Swiss, but he did tie 5 rounds in Swiss, right, where he won 1, his opponent won 1. But it was enough I think he came 12th overall, and then in top 16 he ended up going the distance, obviously winning a total of 8 matches, 2-0, I guess. And then in top 16, sorry, I forgot to mention, it is a best of 3 in top 16, I believe, after that. So very interesting to see that new Swiss round implemented here. And what's also interesting is out of the top 16, so all the decks that were able to play on day 2, you're going to see that Brandon DeCanio's list was the only Amber Steel song. No other Amber Steel song made it. The next one was down here by Vonder in top 32. So still not a bad showing. But if anything, it goes to show you what I keep saying in these things is that a lot of the time, you don't just look at this and be like, oh, Amber Steel Song won another tournament, it's the best deck. No, a lot of the time it is the player. The deck obviously has to be good, but these players, they know their matchups, they know their interactions, and that is, at the end of the day, what usually will be the difference maker, because everybody's on strong decks, right? We all have the internet, we all have net decking capabilities, etc. But it's how you play the deck and your decision making that matters. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the variety basically here, right? We've got a couple of Emerald Amethyst decks, right? These are the bounce decks. Only 2, it looks like. Artabax came second, by the way, so very interesting to see there. Okay, his list, pretty straightforward. This is what he normally plays, I think, when he's testing online. If you look at the other one that came top 16, a little bit different. They're playing the Strike a Good Matches. Their ratios might be a little bit different on their monsters. They're playing the Wildcat Mechanic. That's not in Artabax's list either. But yeah, fairly similar, and again, the concept is going to be the same. So you can see these tech choices being played by certain players. The Emerald Steel list is quite interesting because this is a deck that's kind of come up a little bit later on in the meta, towards the end of March, where you're seeing things like the Friar Tuck, Daisy Duck in this list. It's focused on discard, but not the traditional way that we've seen it played in Rise of the Floodborn and at the start of Into the Inklands with the Bucky and the Morph and the Shift targets. This build is focused more around the advantage that you generate with the Prince John and focusing back on the actions and just the discard characters. So you have Curse Merfolk, Flynn Rider, Ursula Deceiver, Daisy Duck, Friar Tuck, and then just a lot of the spell, like Sudden Chills. No Hypnotize in this one, but yeah, just a lot of on play discard, right? Get the value right away. If you have a Prince John in play, there's your draw engine, right? But again, if you don't have Prince John, the deck likely suffers a lot. But hey, these guys were able to make it work. So I think most of the Emerald Steel lists were likely this build. Yeah, Friar Tuck, some of them are employing different tech cards, I guess you could say. Like some of them play this Robin Hood Daydreamer, which is a tank when it drops. I'm so happy to see this card get some competitive play. Awesome card design. Dreamborn hero. Robin Hood, one of my favorite characters in Disney. Love that movie from back in the day. You got more discard here. The elephant in the room, or maybe not so much. Where is Ruby Amethyst Control? We got one making top 4. You've got another one in top 8, and then you've got a lot in top 16. So kind of showing that Ruby Amethyst is not quite the powerhouse it used to be. It's definitely fallen off a little bit, but it does show that it is probably one of the more consistent decks in the format. Now, again, keep in mind that it is a lot of the time the player playing these decks, right? They're making the right decisions. The deck being what it is, though, right? Like you're likely always going to be able to, if you're a solid player, make a top cut with this deck. But the difference maker is when you get to that top cut and you're playing other really good players, do they have a better deck than you, right? Is their deck going to outpace, out-engineer, out-strategize your deck? And with the Ruby Amethyst list that you see being played right now, they are very slow. This player, I think this was the top 4 player, 4 Queen's Castle. So you see this stuff shifting back into the meta after these were cut completely. You're not seeing the Maui's Fishhook. You're seeing one Jim Hawkins being teched back in because, again, the meta is in a constant state of change. When there were Fishhooks and Maui's running around, it was really bad to play the Queen's Castle. Now it's just Maui's without the Fishhooks being played. You know, it might be time to put the Queen's Castle back in because this card does beat discard. If you can get this up, this is how this deck now beats the Emerald Steel, where it would usually auto lose to it in Rise of the Floodborn, right? I don't want to say, yeah, it would auto lose to it, but it's not necessarily an auto win against Emerald Steel. It just improves your matchup against it. We see Banable Harka rocking the red-blue or Sapphire Ruby Popsicles. This deck, a lot of people thought was going to be a top contender along with Sapphire Steel, and these are very strong decks, but if you take a look at the top 16, they're the only lists in the top 16. Sapphire, the only Sapphire, well, there's a random Sapphire Amethyst. Shout outs to this guy, Michael Bruno, for making it with a off-meta pick, I guess you can call it. But yeah, each of the Sapphire ink colors all had different variations. Only 3 of them in the top 16. Very interesting to see. And again, we all know, if you're watching this video, you probably know who Banable Harka is. Very good player, top player, you know, PIXELBORN, leaderboard kind of guy. Knows what he's doing, right? So a lot of the time it is the player making these decks work. The fact that he was the only one to make this deck work is a little bit concerning because a lot of people thought this was going to be one of the strongest decks of the format. And the way his list is, you know, 11 items for Develop Your Brains, 35 characters, opting for the 2-2 split on the Medusa and Lady Tremaines. And of course, one of the closers for the deck is Lucky Dime. But the issue I see with these decks, with these Sapphire decks, is they're very combo reliant. And if your combos don't go the way you need them to, or you get a muddled hand, like your game plan just falls apart. So his record, it looks like, does it show it here? Or do I have to go back? I might have to go back. I'm curious to see how many draws he had. His one loss was obviously in the top 8. So he didn't lose anything in Swiss rounds 0-2, I believe. And he tied 4. He probably won 4, I'm guessing, because he won his top 16. So he went 5, 1, and 4. Yeah, because that's 9 Swiss rounds. And then he won 1, and then he lost 1 in top 16. So that makes sense. So interesting to see. I just want to check out a couple more of these Ruby Amethyst lists here. So this one's on Dragonfire. Again, 4 Queen's Castle, making its way back in. 1 Spellbook, 2 Maui's Fishhook. It's actually interesting to see, and Teeth and Ambitions also in this list. It's interesting to see the top 4 list not play any like Teeth and Ambitions or Spellbooks. They were just like, I don't even care about the mirror match because there's other big threats in the format now. I'm playing things that, you know, 3 Lady Tremaine, 3 Madame Medusa. I'm just playing things that beat the other decks that might give this deck trouble. And it worked for him, right? He got top 4. He probably lost to, Green Bounce. He probably got paired against. I mean, both of these are not good matchups into Ruby Amethyst now. Like, both of these decks should beat Ruby Amethyst pretty cleanly. So yeah, it was like all 3 of these decks beat Ruby Amethyst. Like, that's why this deck has kind of fallen off and become a little bit more mid. I want to take a look at this blue-purple list. It's kind of interesting. We got 2 Befuddles. It's just like a ramp list. Pua, wow, interesting. Not really ramp. Like, I did run across a build online that was using like Jafar in purple with like the card draw of Sapphire. It was kind of interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I guess this deck just tries to control tempo while ramping. Tempo with purple, draw with blue, ramp with blue. I don't know. I don't see this being that strong, but obviously this person made it work. 65 cards, by the way. That's wild. But yeah, shout outs to them for making top 16. And then if we take a look, Schleier was the guy that won the previous tournament, I believe, with Sapphire Steel. If we take a look at his name here, yeah, he came first in the last one when it was best of 3. So he rocked the same deck, it looks like, or same color combination. He probably changed a few things. Only 2 bells with the Lucky Dime. Still rocking 1 Rise of the Titans. No, I don't see any of the Dragon Gem guy. How can I forget his name? Jeez. Wow, I'm totally blanking. But yeah, no real item removal, which is interesting. But again, this deck should have a good matchup into Amber Steel Song. He might not have faced Brandon DeCanio in the top 16. I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting. And then of course the biggest one of them all, the winning list, Brendan DeCanio's Amber Steel Song. Looks a little different than the version he ran before, where he won the tournament 2 tournaments ago, where Benja, that's the name. Jeez, I can't believe I forgot that. Where the Queen is now being used, and if you took a look at Zan's list from the in-person 8K, they were running the Queen package. I think the Queen is just tremendous value, like shift 2, and then you have something that can basically out anything on the board when it's exerted. It is very powerful. It is a little weak to Ruby Amethyst, but again, with Ruby Amethyst falling off, like this card becomes better. And the reason why it's weak against Ruby Amethyst is because like they'll just bounce their stuff and keep them readied, right? Where the Queen needs stuff to be exerted to really get the like the Queen needs another character on board with it and your cards to be exerted for it to get like free value of outing your cards. So that's interesting. 3 Cinderellas, 3 Stitch, 3 Tinkerbell for the top end. 4 Robin Hoods. You know, this card is just incredible, I think. And still rocking the Beast and the Rapunzel. So, you know, some decent top end. Like everything here quests for 2. Everything up here. Even the Benja quests for 2. The Ariel, only 3 to dig for songs. And then it's just 1-drops, right? Your 2-drop is Lantern and Bare Necessities. Interesting list. 17 on Inkables, it looks like, because 3, 4, 3 is 10. 13, 17. There are no uninkable characters. 4 Lanterns now. I probably would only run 3 myself, but I mean, you know, he's a better player and better deck builder than I am. $620 on TCG Player. But that is your winning list. I think this is a really solid list. Like, it's just, you know, I just draw some early threat, or not early threats, but I drop some like small characters, and then I just turn them into big characters. And I just start like, you know, questing, controlling the board. You know, this deals with aggro. This just cleans up boards. This helps clean up boards. Obviously, the songs clean up boards. This card is like an auto win against other steel decks if they don't have another way to out it. Draw Engine, Rapunzel, Draw Engine, Beast Tragic Hero, Draw Engine. You know, it's a solid deck, man. If you're a Amber Steel Song player, the deck just looks solid, right? The only thing that should give it a run for its money is Sapphire Steel that are running the Benjas. If you don't run Benjas, this match can still be hard because you don't know if they're on flutes or not. Like in this instance, I think the Sapphire Steel list should have a good time against this. But I mean, even if, like, it's hard to say even because like they have to ramp Whole New World into advantage because I mean, again, as an Amber Steel Song player, you know, in the Sapphire Steel matchup, you're valuing your Cinderella Stout-Hearted here. You're keeping these, you're shifting them, or you're just hard casting them. You're outing the Cogsworth and stuff like that. Again, if you watch my video with Sapphire Steel, I think I posted a matchup where I played against 2 Amber Steel decks, and it was just like easy money to beat them. Obviously, the player matters, like I said. I don't think I'd ever beat a player like DeCanio here, but that's the only deck I really see giving this deck a lot of trouble. Like, again, if you take a look, like this deck, like Steel beats all of these tempo-based decks. Like it beats... yeah, like this is a bad matchup for artifacts. It beats the Emerald Amethyst. It should beat the Steel Emerald, right? Because it just deals with their discard with the Grab Your Swords or any other AoE damage spell. Because, you know, the Prince John is the only thing that has Ward. It has a good matchup now into bounce. Like, I shouldn't say a good matchup. It's kind of 50-50. It depends really who's on the draw and who's on the play. But, you know, a good draw for Ruby Amethyst and like a mediocre draw for Amber Steel Song, you probably favor the Ruby Amethyst deck. What I will say, though, and I've said this in set 1, is if this deck gets the curve into like shift 2, shift 3, Whole New World, like the game's over. Like you've likely already lost because they're gonna get up to so high on the lore count before you even get to your Be Prepared as a Ruby Amethyst player. Or any other deck really. There's nothing you can really do. Like the Sapphire Steel deck might be able to come back because of the ramp into like the Grab Your Swords and stuff like that. But other than that, there's no other real deck that can contend with like a full advantage on the play. Early shift 2, shift 3, Whole New World. Like this deck just auto wins in my opinion. And that's why it's so strong. Because it is, like, as long as you have a Whole New World, you have so many shift targets. it's a really strong deck. But again, it takes a lot of practice to be good with this deck, in my opinion. But anyways, guys, I've kind of rambled on for a while. I'm sure this video is getting on the larger side. Oh, there's Zephyr running the Steel Sapphire, top 32. But yeah, let me know what you think of this tournament if you made it this far in the video. If you enjoyed this insight, let me know as well. More PIXELBORN gameplay and Lorcana gameplay in general just coming to the channel, hopefully. Thank you again for watching. Quantum is out.